I like to think that I'm a pretty live and let live guy. I really don't care what you do in the privacy of your own home as long as it doesn't hurt me or mine. Similarly, I don't want the government telling me what I can and can't do. In an ideal world, less regulation will be better. But what happens when we're talking about gig apps who are always trying to pay us less and less? Does there come a point where government intervention becomes a necessity? Or is it just asking for trouble? In this video, we're going to look at pros and cons. What's going on, everybody? I'm Zach Drives Fast for the RideShare Guy, and in this video, we're going to talk about good intentions and bad legislation, how we get caught in the middle, and what we can do about it. I gave a lot of thought to how I wanted to start this video. I don't want it to be a politically driven subject, and this isn't the place for me to air my ideology. I want to approach this with no political bias from the perspective of a longtime gig worker. I want to give you a scenario. Let's say you were walking down the street and a politician came walking up to you and handed you $1,000 with no strings attached. Are you going to turn the money down because of their affiliation? Or are you going to take the win? Hopefully you're going to take the money and not give their party a second thought. Now I want to give you a different scenario. Let's say a politician you do support came walking up to you and said, "Hey, I think that you're marginalized and underpaid. Here's all these benefits you didn't ask for." The problem is, the cost of those benefits come with a trade-off. Less hours. What now? What I'm trying to illustrate here is good and bad legislation can come from both sides of the fence. The true problem is when they don't know what we actually need, which, if we're being honest, is most of the time. Part of the issue we run into is unless you're a W-2 employee, in the United States, we can't form a union. Sure, you can organize, but you'll never have a true union. That's why I never have and likely never will support a strike. Good luck getting the message out to the point where we can actually make a dent. I want you to let me know in the comments how long you've been driving. For me, it's about 3.5 years, and in that time, I've seen a lot of changes, almost none of them good. I've seen the pay reduced by about 1/3 while inflation continues to soar. I've seen oversaturation to the point where New Year's Eve felt like a Wednesday afternoon. I've seen the introduction of countless programs that promised huge pay when in actuality, they were designed to squeeze the drivers just a little more. Sure, we're playing in their sandbox, but let's not forget that their business model doesn't work without us. If we got a true hourly rate and didn't have to use our own vehicles, we'd be having a different conversation, but we don't. Just like we were the first day we went out and drove, we're still using our own vehicles. We're still swiping our own card at the gas station, and we're still covering 100% of our own expenses. Those things haven't changed and likely never will, unless legislation forces gig apps to change their business model. But is that a good thing for drivers? Let's explore that a little. I'm going to be honest. I get very nervous when the government starts getting involved because time and time again, they've shown that they don't understand what it is that we want or what we need. Imagine taking your car into the shop because it's making a weird sound. You get it there, and they tell you they're going to take good care of you and to come back in a week to pick up your car. Fast forward about a week and you get your car back. The problem is, not only is that squeaking sound still there, but they also installed a turbo system that you didn't ask for. That might sound awesome, but it really doesn't do any good if your car isn't running well to begin with. The same thing is true when lawmakers get involved in gig work. They view us as underpaid, marginalized workers, which is largely true. However, the problem is that they don't understand what we need. Their solution to our problem is almost never what we wanted. Help me understand how we ask for reasonable base pay, and lawmakers turn around and spit out a bill that would make us W-2 employees. How is it that we ask for transparency, but lawmakers hear that we want healthcare? I'd like to point out, gig workers are a very unique breed, and most of us do this because it isn't a W-2 job. Having said that, most gig workers do have a W-2 job. About 80% of us, actually. We're not asking for the things that we already get at a W-2 job. We're asking for the things that we don't, and lawmakers rarely understand that. Now, I can't speak for you, but I damn sure don't need health insurance provided by a gig app. What I do need to know is exactly how much that order is going to pay and exactly where it's going, prior to accepting it. I do not need paid time off. What I do need is reasonable pay for the work that I'm doing. Let me ask you this. Do you understand what a brain surgeon does and why they make the decisions that they do? No offense, but probably not. Similarly, Lawmakers do not know what we do and why we make the decisions we make. So I've got to ask, could they ever truly effectively lobby for us? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm of the opinion that there's a solution to that problem, and it's us. There's millions of us. We're not some small fringe demographic. We have a voice, and we need to use it. I've seen really good legislation, and I've seen really bad legislation in my time driving. In my opinion, one of the best pieces of legislation I saw came out of Colorado. There was a bill up for vote that would have given both customers and drivers total transparency. That's it. That's all it would have done. The customers would know exactly where their money was going, and the drivers would know how much we were going to earn. One of the worst pieces of legislation I've ever heard is something that would have paid drivers nearly $50 an hour. While that may sound great on the surface, I want you to think about how many customers would actually pay that much. Not to mention, if you think oversaturation is bad now, what do you think would happen when the general public found out that DoorDash drivers were making $50 an hour? This is a prime example of a good intention with disastrous consequences for everybody. Do you want to sit idly by and watch things get worse and worse? Or do you want to be part of the solution? You don't need to organize a protest. You don't need to get hundreds of drivers together to make a statement. Hell, you don't even have to write a petition. You just need to educate your lawmakers. If they continue to write bills about our work without understanding what we do, they'll continue to make a bad situation worse. However, if they started creating laws after we educate them about what we need, what we want, and what we do, we would stop seeing a lot of the unnecessary bullshit that we didn't ask, and we might actually move in the right direction. Is the government getting involved in gig work a good or a bad thing? That entirely depends. We can use our voices to demand positive change, we can remain independent contractors, get reasonable pay, and total transparency. But it isn't going to happen if we all sit on our ass. Contact your representatives. This could be anything from your city council to members of Congress. Explain the difference between a W-2 employee and a 1099 contractor. Tell them how making us a W-2 employee takes away our freedom and therefore mitigates the reason most of us drive. Tell them what a hidden tip is and that frequently we have to guess how much we're actually going to make. Tell them about tip baiting. That shit should be flat out illegal. Tell them about the goofy acceptance rate games that the gig apps play and how they want to treat us like employees without paying us like them. Tell them that we have to cover 100% of our own expenses. I've been fortunate enough to have face-to-face conversations with lawmakers, and these were all things that they didn't know. Pretty scary when you consider the fact that they could be voting on legislation that affects our livelihood. Educate them. In the next year, there's approximately 12 states so far that'll be voting on legislation about gig work. Let's make sure they get it right. If you haven't done so yet, please do consider pressing the like button and subscribing to the RideShare Guy. You can catch my videos here every Tuesday. If this video resonated with you, check out this video where I detail my experiences meeting with lawmakers. I'm Zach Drives Fast for the RideShare Guy. Take care.